Right. Hi, everyone. I was just about to say welcome back, but it's me that's come back. Welcome back to me. Lovely to see a few of you here. It's nice to have a few more on the Awakening Together Zoom meeting. And it's just lovely to be back. As you know, I've had an 8-week break. So today, it's the 17th of June 2019 in Australia. I know this is going out on a Sunday night on the 16th of June. It just goes to show you how I'm using time differently. It's really got nothing to do with time. It's just a joke. Let's start off with a little prayer. I'm going to do 2 prayers. One will be from the Course in Miracles, the last sort of 100 or so lessons I see as prayers. And because the last section of the Course in Miracles just says that we really enter a period of no words, where we're just talking, just calling out to our Father and just asking, just wanting to join. So we've had in the workbook of A Course in Miracles, we've had all these startling lessons given to us about the world, about us, about who we are, about where we are, about our mind, that we're not a body. And then we're given this lesson over and over in all different ways. And then the last sort of third of the lessons are all Jesus just asking us to come into silence and just call God's name. So it's really just this, this is the goal of the Course, is peace. So we're just asked to go to peace. This is the way to peace, is to just call God's name, and that's it. You know, it's very simple. And the reason why we won't call upon God is we've created a false idea about God. We've created an idea that God doesn't love us. We've created an idea that God is out to get us, that we've failed God some way, that we've been guilty, that we haven't joined with Him enough. It doesn't matter what the words are, it's this sort of feeling that we're not connected to God, that feeling that we're unconnected, that we're out on our own. So that's why Jesus puts a lot of the lessons, the last lessons, is just asking us to quietly come to God. So it's a little bit difficult as a Course in Miracles teacher to teach this, because everyone really has to do it. But as a teacher, I'm only ever teaching you how to be a student. I'm teaching you that I'm a student, and that's all I'm ever saying, is I'm a student. And that's really my message, is to you become a really beautiful teacher the more you become a student. So let's all become students. And in this world, everyone wants to be a teacher. They don't want to be a student. When we go to school, all we want to do is leave school and go to work. And sort of, we don't want to be students. But here we need to be students. The more we are a student of the Holy Spirit, the more we will have peace. The more we will just sink down into this beautiful peace and join with God. And God is love. God is just this beautiful, all-encompassing love. It's just like a deep well of love that you just have to enter into and just really feel that presence of love within us. That's why it's so important to quieten our mind, to not use too many distractions, to spend time in silence. So I'm just going to read this. I've just opened the course randomly in that section of those lovely lessons. Lesson 343. I am not asked to make a sacrifice to find the mercy and the peace of God. The end of suffering cannot be loss. The gift of everything can but be gain. You only give, you never take away. And you created me to be like you. So sacrifice becomes impossible for me as well as you. I too must give, and so all things are given unto me forever and forever. As I was created, I remain. Your Son can make no sacrifice, for he must be complete, having the function of completing you. I am complete, because I am your Son. I cannot lose, for I can only give, and everything is mine eternally. The mercy and the peace of God are free. Salvation has no cost. It is a gift that must be freely given and received. And it is this that we would learn today. So each lesson just continues this song of words, just singing to us, just really coming into our mind as we listen to them, and let's let it sort of illuminate and just bless us. These are words that are meant to come into our minds and just tell us how much we're loved, how much we're adored, that we are this beautiful love, that we're not this little body living in a little world having to fight and defend itself. We're asked to join more and more into this sanctuary within our minds, where there's complete rest, this very, very deep rest, because we were created beautiful, and even that is, there was no time where we weren't this love. Sometimes when we think about that we were created, we think in linear time, that there was a time where we weren't here and weren't created and weren't love, because the ego mind can't think outside linear time. It thinks that there was a moment in time that it got created as something as love. But the truth is, we're always love. We're always this deep love. Just our creations are love. It's just, it's something that can't be described, because the minute I go to put a word on it, I feel it's not it. But really, for us to join back to God, which is love, which is our true self, which is where we are, we just need to be willing to have every misthought corrected. And the mind that we made up, the ego, that mind is very powerful. We are sleeping in a mind. We're literally, like, if you can imagine yourself asleep in a bed, just dreaming and making up a whole reality It has no substance but seems to while you're in it. This world can seem very, very real. Very real. So it does take time to remove yourself, have your mind, how can I say it, to consciously move away from the desires, from the things seemingly outside you. So, and that does take time, and we just allow ourselves time. Now, this is a very gentle journey, so whatever happens, we don't beat ourselves up. Never ever criticise ourselves on this journey. We just go through it, we just join when we can. And you're going to have periods where you really feel connected to this love, and then you're going to feel yourself move away from it. And that's normal. But it feels like then you start to realise how you were once joined with love, and you can see how the separation seems to, what's talked about in the Course is we had a thought, separation. The only way you can feel yourself moving away from this love is for you to believe a thought, separation. So the tiny matter is not happening some time ago. It's happening right here in our minds. This is something because it's outside linear time. So we need to notice when we're feeling uncomfortable, when we're feeling afraid, when we're feeling scared. And all we need to do is call to God. Whatever name you use to call to God, or the Holy Spirit, or Jesus. You'll feel which one to call to, and that's it. Just call, and you'll feel it will come. That's all we're asked to do. And sometimes for me, it's just the word Father. I know that's not everyone's term. Some use Creator, Holy Father, it doesn't matter. He doesn't say in Lesson 183, I call upon God's name and I'm on my own. It doesn't matter what word you use because the word's not important. It's a calling to God. You want to join. And that's all we need to do is just call and wait and just get quiet so the world's thoughts just quieten down in our minds. We want to quieten the world, the outside world. We want to spend more and more time in quietness so that this love within starts to peek through. We get glimpses of this love, and it points us for the way home. It points us to our true home. So there is a period on our journey where we spend a lot of time within, getting into quietness. And last week, during the week, I did a short 20-minute, that's short for me, a short video, which I've put up on my YouTube channel, just calling a month of silence. And it's not so much that you don't go to work or you don't interact with some people. It's an intention of going within more, of looking at your life and seeing where you're using distractions to ease the ego mind rather than going within. That's really what it's about. And giving a certain period of time where you intentionally decide for yourself, that no matter what anyone says about that you dedicate that to yourself, your time. So for me, I've given up the groups and my one-on-ones for a month, and taking calls and all social media, etc., just for a month, just to spend every day for a month just reading the course and meditating and going very, very deep in my mind once again. And just that way, it allows Jesus to bring in such beautiful inspiration. You can sometimes get sort of new, you get, for people that write songs, there's periods where songs come in because the mind's very quiet, and the Jesus, the Holy Spirit, they can get through to really send some really clear messages. Because while we're distracted, we have special gifts, we have a special purpose in helping others wake up. We each have our own gift, so we have to forget about what anyone else is doing. Ours is going to be different. We're all going to be different. And we'll get a deeper sense of that as we get quiet. Now, as I shared, I did 2 years of that quietness, and I'm just doing a month this time, but that's just been guided. And I've already, the day that I made the commitment, well, I was just guided to commit to it. And then when I made the commitment that night, as I was going to sleep, I was shown some things that I'm going to concentrate on during that period. So the minute you make the decision, it gets activated. So I encourage, if you'd like to know more about where to put your focus and intention, I've got some ideas in that little video. So I'm now going to start. I'm going to just say a prayer to the Holy Spirit, because this helps everyone join and understand that the way home is through surrender, and there's no loss in surrendering, because if we want the peace of God, we're going to have the peace of God. When we want it, we have to desire it above all else. And having the peace of God has no loss in it, no sacrifice. The ego always says that if we don't value something in this world, it's going to bring up whatever. It's going to, like, it's a really crazy thought system. Each person gets their own little ideas about what they're going to. Their ego brings in as what's going to be the loss and sacrifice of fully coming to God. So all you need to do is have a look at what the ego is saying is going to be loss and sacrifice, and then look at other awakened minds and say, is that happening to them? This is the way to counteract these egoic ideas that you're going to go crazy, you're going to lose all your friends, you're going to suffer. And it's interesting that those egoic thoughts that come in, that say there is going to be loss and sacrifice in having no ego, they're actually, those things that it brings in are what you're experiencing now. It says you're going to go mad. Well, when you're in the ego, you're mad. So all those things that it says might happen to you, you're already experiencing. So the only loss is the loss of that thought system. It keeps you entrapped in suffering. So we have to go along and develop a deep, deep trust in this inner voice. And this lesson I'm going to go through today, which is lesson 135. If I defend myself, I am attacked. Now, one of the cornerstones to awakening, one of the greatest practices you can have, is to never defend yourself. And I think it's lesson 153, in my defencelessness, my safety lies. And that's one of my key lessons. When I realised that he said it was the costliest of all ego devices, I thought to myself, well, there has to be my focus. I have to focus on noticing when I want to defend myself. That has to be my focus. I have to observe my mind, and which is myself, my ego self. I have to spend more time noticing when I feel this urge to defend. And as I started to notice the defensiveness that I wanted to go into, I noticed that it was very subtle at times. And it was really, I started to notice it was really every opinion I had. And then it took me into a deeper understanding that it was any time I tried to set up anything, anytime, anywhere, I was defending. So there was like more and more defensiveness revealed through just practicing this defencelessness. So you start to see the surface things, then there's just layers and layers. And in this particular lesson, Jesus is going to talk about the ways we're defending for the body, which is not us. But so there's the craziness of it, that everything I do, even to eat food, we're defending that we're a body, because we're believing ourselves to be a body. And I'm not telling anyone not to eat. I'm just saying that there's always going to be generally some part of the ego mind here while we're in the world, because Ken Wapnick says if you're breathing, you're defending because you're attached to the breath, which we think keeps us alive. So just before I get onto this lesson, I'm just going to quickly say that just a little reminder of the truth is this body and this world is a projection from the mind. Now, we need to hear this many, many times, because as soon as we hear it, we disregard it. We don't want to hear that. It doesn't make sense. We've not got no awareness of that. So we disregard it. And it's okay. The minute you disregard it, it's what happens. But we need to hear this. That's why we listen to teachers, and we listen and we read books about it. We read the Course. He's telling us this over and over on every page. But we as think that we're living in a world and that we think we have some sort of power. We're so fearful of not having our own little lives as important. So, but the truth is that these bodies are projections from the mind. And the reason why I'm sharing this is how, even though we may not really like this truth, it makes sense. It makes it all understandable as to how to be free. So Jesus says that the body is part of the projection. And if this body is an image and it has, it is not got any autonomy of its own, how can something that is being projected, it's like if you see a film projector and the image on the screen, it's like, how can that image be sick? how can it have a life? How can it be anything? But the image has taken itself. It's forgotten. The mind has forgotten where it is. So we now have buried so much in our minds, it's become so unconscious that we think we're the body, or we look at our body and we look at other bodies and we think, yeah, and we believe that the body can get sick. So the way home is to see that the mind is sick and the body, the projection, we look at it and it seems to be coming from the body. It seems as if, if I've got a pain in my foot, it seems that the foot, when I look down, I look at my foot, I say the pain is in that foot. Jesus tells us, no, that pain is in your mind and it's coming from a grievance. And when all grievances and guilt are healed, you won't be able to experience any pain or sickness in your body. So this is the real journey, is back into our mind, is to have our mind healed. And these are the teachings that help us really lift our mind away from this idea that the body has autonomy, that it is me. So I'm just going to point that out again, just because I like to remind, just as a quick reminder of the truth, that we are looking at a projection of our body, and a projected image cannot feel, it cannot be in pain, it has no life. Everything that happens to this body is happening in my mind. So I need to go back to the cause and have cause corrected. And as the cause is corrected, the body is neutral. It's a wholly neutral thing. So when we look at a projected image on a screen, and we go to the movies and we see that projected image cannot get sick. It can't do anything. So we go back to the projector and we change it. And then the body, when it's not idolized and it's not given things that it doesn't have, then the body sort of becomes used for the Holy Spirit's purposes. But by that stage, you've come back to God's love. You're not in the world you're not scrambling around. You know where the problem is in my mind, and you know where the solution is in my mind. So the cause and the body is the effect, seemingly. So we change the cause. And that's really the message of the Course over and over again. And as I said, we need to be reminded. And so our journey home is just accepting the correction to, so when we seemingly get upset by something outside us, the answer is that person is not there. I've created them so that I can project my guilt onto them, the mind. I've created that. That's just a character. That's an image that I'm seeing. And I'm projecting onto that image. So lesson 135, if I defend myself, I am attacked. Who would defend himself unless he thought he was attacked, that the attack was real, and that his own defence could save him? And herein lies the folly of defence. It gives illusions full reality and then attempts to handle them as real. It adds illusions to illusions, thus making correction doubly difficult. And it is this you do when you attempt to plan the future, activate the past, or organise the present as you wish. So in this particular lesson, he's putting a little focus he's asking us to zoom into our thoughts about planning, because actually all our little plans that we make with the ego are defences. We may think the ego says, when we try to plan, the ego says that we need to plan in case something goes wrong. Now, most of us know how the ego likes to plan against future financial insecurity. And I remember Gary Renard saying when he travelled around the world, the most comments or questions he got or concerns that people had was about financial security. And I know for myself that was what the ego, my ego, where it tended to put the biggest issues for me. Always, I spent my life, no matter how much money I was earning, I spent my life concerned about the future. And this is actually suffering. We're never living in the holy instant of love. We're never just completely free and just really just living in this essence of deep, deep peace if we are trying to plan for some future. So when we are defending this planning with the ego, now the way I used to do it, you probably, all egos do this, but I'll just express it out here. I would, when I say I, it's me joining the ego, okay? So I'm just going to express it as I, because I was in the ego at the time. So I would. So the ego says you can't trust anything in the future. It says that you have to plan and prepare for the worst outcomes. So it goes and it makes up these worst outcomes, and they're all about you as a body. And it says it projects ahead, makes images in your mind about some terrible thing that might happen. You might be homeless, might be without food. It might even say that you're going to go into some care facility where the nurses won't look after you. That, you'll get this horrible food served up every day, that you'll have dementia, and it's going to give you a constant ideas about future suffering. And so then it says, okay, we have to defend against that. So then it starts looking at what you need to do now. So it says you haven't got enough money now to defend against that. You haven't got the right people around to make sure you don't go into a home, or make sure you're not homeless. So the ego tries to find solutions now for you to put in place for projected outcomes in the future. And then what happens is, when it comes up with the ideas to try to defend against that, it then also brings in the idea that defense, what it's asking you to do, won't work. So when we start to really, Sharon has just asked me, how did your fibromyalgia heal? Thanks, Sharon, for that. I'll just finish talking about this particular thing, and then I'll get on to just heal. I'll talk about healing. So we have to notice how our ego mind works. We have to notice. In one of the early lessons, he asks us to think about the things that we're thinking about and what we want to happen in the future. And he says, I want you to notice that those thoughts you don't know your best interests. You don't know anything. And that's why we live in so much anxiety, because we're living in a mind that believes that is a body, has convinced us that we are this body, and all our senses tell us we're this body. So we're convinced, and all the thoughts that we think are about me as a body. That's why it's amazing anyone awakens, because that's so convincing. So we have to notice where we're defending. So I'm going to read on, because I want you to, the reason why I've talked about that is if you can relate to how I thought, because there's no private thoughts, we all have those same thoughts. You can start to notice. Now you have to notice first that all the things that you've tried to think to protect yourself haven't worked. And you're constantly missing the present moment by constantly trying to defend against some future outcome. And the future is projected. It's never here. It's never now. So when we think about now, we think we've got everything. We look, we see we've got a bed, we've got food, we've got everything. And even if you were in a situation where, say, you were in a refugee camp or in a country that didn't have any food, in that moment, you can ask for guidance and just say, Holy Spirit, where can I go to get some food? And you will be guided. The Holy Spirit is going to guide you to allow you. Now, I think I've shared when I was going through periods where I was saying, okay, Holy Spirit, how would this work? I was guided to go for a walk, and when I went on my walk, there was all the blackberry bushes up at my mum's place, out the back in the hills out there, and Holy Spirit said you could have lunch here. They were really delicious, and I did. So I've even heard stories of, I'm not sure this is right, but I did hear a story once where I think it was Moses went in the desert and the birds brought the food and dropped the food to them. So if you've started to put this into practice, you will absolutely be surprised by how things come in, get brought into you as you need them. And what we're doing is we're going into a state where we don't want to plan at all. We're going to shift into a deep trust. We're going to be shifting into this complete trust that everything we need is going to be brought into us. I'm just going to read on here. You operate from the belief you must protect yourself from what is happening because it must contain what threatens you. A sense of threat is an acknowledgement of an inherent weakness, a belief that there is danger, which has power to call on you to make appropriate defence. The world is based on this insane belief. So it's saying the world is based on this. So when we look around, everyone is defending against everything. When we really understand what this defensiveness is about, we see that everyone's doing it, and the world's based on it, because the world is based on the idea that we are bodies and we're separate from God and separate from each other. And he's talking about the world here and all its structures, all its thoughts and doubts, its penalties and heavy armaments, its legal definitions and its codes, its ethics and its leaders and its gods, and that's gods with a small g, all serve but to preserve its sense of threat. So when we start to observe this world, we say, okay, yeah, look at all the codes, look at, like, why do people go to jail? Why are people put in jail? Because they're a threat to other bodies. So you see how all the codes, all the legal system, everything is set up. It's all based on the belief that bodies are important and that bodies can die, and that when they die, that's terrible. And we're really shifting our minds into seeing that there is no death. Who I am can't die. And as we shift our mind into that, have that awareness of who we are, and that this essence of us is immortal and eternal and can't die, we can teach that to others. For no one walks the world in armature, but must have terror striking at his heart. So terror is striking at our hearts every time we think we're a body and we're walking around this world, and the terror is pushed down, but it's there. It's always there. Defense is frightening. It stems from fear, increasing fear as each defense is made. You think it offers safety. So when we start thinking about the particular situations in our life and we think, now I've got to find a solution to that. So this might happen, and how can I stop that happen? And what if this and what if that? We spend all this time thinking. We're actually thinking with the ego. And the ego never brings in a solution, because the ego is seek and do not find. So I'm seeking the ego. I'm seeking the ego thought system to find a solution to a problem. And the problem's not even real, but the ego brings up the problem and then says, ask me to find the solution. So we go to the ego to find the solution, and it's never going to bring in the solution. So we're literally caught up in that state of mind, which is just insanity when you see it. And most people believe that that type of thinking is normal. And so if you say to another ego, hey, I've got this problem, they will bring up a lot of solutions for you based on the world. You know, you need to stop spending money, you need to save up to buy a house, you can guarantee your safety by owning a house. Well, that's rubbish. There's no safety in anything here. Everything can be taken away like that. And if you put your safety in anything here, you know deep down that nothing is certain here, you know it. And so therefore, you're living a life of terror, of anxiety in every moment. So defense is frightening. It stems from fear, increasing fear as each defense is made. You think it offers safety, yet it speaks of fear made real and terror justified. Is it not strange you do not pause to ask, as you elaborate your plans and make your armour thicker and your locks more tight, what you defend and how and what against? So we've lost track. We have to go back to the answer is, what am I defending and how and against what? Let us consider first what you defend. It must be something that is very weak and easily assaulted. So when we look at our body, we think we're a body, it seems weak and easily assaulted. Yeah, you know, someone could stab me, and that's the flesh that we think we are, this piece of skin, can be easily assaulted. It can fall over and break its hip. It can, there's, you know, if we watch the news all day, where we learn all new different ways that we can slip over and knock our head, people die in all different ways. And if we're relating to a body, we go, and that's why you start to see. It's so interesting when you really come to see that you're not a body. You start to see more and more laws made by governments to try to defend against all these little things. Every time somebody has something happen to their body, it's like, let's get a new law to defend against it. And it doesn't matter how many laws the governments put in place. Bodies still get sick, bodies still get hurt, bodies still die, because that's the nature of this ego dream. You can't change this dream. Nothing's ever going to change this dream because it's dreamt by, it's got a purpose. Its purpose is to never help us wake up. It's to keep us stuck here. The only way out is to backtrack into our mind and really come to an experience that we're not a body and that we're spirit or mind. And so that's why it's so important to spend time going within, because this is where the answer is, within. And as we heal within, the without, the seemingly without, the projection will start to change, and we'll look on it. We won't need to defend. That's why nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. This is what we're talking about. Herein lies the peace of God. When I realise I am nothing, I am not this body, then once I'm understanding and I'm connecting into something that isn't related to this body, I have the peace of God. That's what that saying is pointing to. And that when I realise that I can walk this earth and nothing threatens me, that my body is a wholly neutral thing, it's not me, then I am free. I am free because that's where the peace is, when I know that I am spirit. That's why the lessons, so many of the lessons are pointing to you're not the body. Okay, so let us consider first what you defend. It must be something that is very weak and easily assaulted. It must be something made easy prey, unable to protect itself and needing your defence. What but the body has such frailty that constant care and watchful deep concern are needful to protect its little life? What but the body falters and must fail to serve the Son of God as worthy host? Yet it is not the body that can fear, nor be a thing to fear. It has no needs but those which you assign to it. It needs no complicated structures of defence, no health-inducing medicine, no care, and no concern at all. Defend its life or give it gifts to make it beautiful, or walls to make it safe, and you but say your home is open to the thief of time, corruptible and crumbling. So unsafe it must be guarded with your very life. Is not this picture fearful? Can you be at peace with such a concept of your home? Yet what endowed the body with the right to serve you, thus accept your own belief? It is your mind which gave the body all the functions that you see in it and set its value far beyond a little pile of dust and water. That's really what our body is, a little pile of dust and water. So eventually we look at a rotting body and it's just a little pile of dust and water. We think it has life, but it actually has no life. It has no life of its own. Everything that we feel and think and do with our body is happening in our minds. The body is in need of no defence. This cannot be too often emphasised. It will be strong and healthy if the mind does not abuse it by assigning it to roles it cannot fill, to purposes beyond its scope, and to exalted aims which it cannot accomplish. Such attempts, ridiculous yet deeply cherished, are the sources for the many mad attacks you make upon it. For it seems to fail your hopes, your needs, your values, and your dreams. The self that needs protection is not real. The body, valueless and hardly worth the least defence, need merely be perceived as quite apart from you, and it becomes a healthy, serviceable instrument through which the mind can operate until its usefulness is over. Who would want to keep it when its usefulness is done? So its usefulness is really just for the Holy Spirit. When we join back to our Holy Spirit mind, our clear Christ mind, it's the body. I think the best way to look at our body is like our motor car. We just get in our car and it takes us around. So look at our body like a vehicle. It comes with us everywhere. It sees others, and it's going to share truth through us. So it's given a new purpose. Defend the body and you have attacked your mind, for you have seen in it the faults, the weaknesses, the limits and the lacks from which you think the body must be saved. You will not see the mind separate from bodily conditions, and you will impose upon the body all the pain that comes from the conception of the mind as limited and fragile and apart from other minds and separate from its source. So we believe we're separate from our source. We think we're separate from others. And I'm actually going to have to finish lesson 135 next week. So I think I will, I want to talk briefly to Sharon's question. So it's quite, lesson 135 is quite long. I think it's like, oh, actually it's 5. That's 5 pages long. So I've just got to the bottom of the second page. So I'm just going to put this up as part 1. So just responding to Sharon's, I'll just briefly, I've got 5 minutes. Sharon has asked, how did your fibromyalgia heal? Okay. Now, I had seemingly fibromyalgia. I was sick, but we've got to remember that once I realised that it had nothing to do with the body, and I started to really, I took all these teachings in the course as truth. Even though I wasn't understanding them or living in them, I decided that I was going to take them as the truth and try to accept them. So I stopped trying to find solutions for the fibromyalgia, and I went within and I worked with the Holy Spirit on my mind, which is on my grievances and my fears. So I started to notice, like what we've been talking about here, all the ways I tried to plan for the future. So I was in anxiety through those worries. And I started to I focused for 2 years on looking within my mind and tried to find all the things that were seemingly the story was creating or making this idea of unworthiness, or anywhere I was projecting any person here that I had made the scapegoat that I had projected out onto. So I just left the fibromyalgia alone and I didn't concern myself with it, and I went within, because he says that the cause is in my mind. So it didn't heal instantly. It'd be lovely to say it did, but it started to lift very, very gently. The more I released these fears and grievances and the guilt. So I had a lot of guilt about the story about being guilty as a mother, guilty as a daughter, guilty as a wife, ex-wife. There was a lot of guilt, guilty as a grandmother. Did you exercise? At that particular stage, when I had fibromyalgia, I couldn't exercise. I used to do triathlons, and I got the fibromyalgia chronic fatigue so bad I couldn't even walk up a flight of steps. I couldn't hold my hairdryer up. You got to remember that the ego thoughts were ramping up. The fear was coming really. I was getting more and more fearful, more and more in the ego's mind. I was just defending. I was defending the body continuously, because when your body is sick, you look for the solutions out in the world. So I was trying to find different ways. So one of the things that they offer for fibromyalgia is to stop going out, stop exercising, stop everything, which meant that I had little contact. If someone came around, I'd get very tired very quickly. But that was because of my mind. And all the conversation was about how sick I was. And, you know, every time I saw someone, I'd say, oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I feel like I've been hit by a truck. That I've been hit by a truck was like so often said. And so when I started to say to Jesus, I want to be free of this, I think I've shared in other videos, I was guided to say, I am well. I am well, to everyone. Not speak about it, not to give it any life. And that was the first part. But all the other parts of my mind had to heal. Now I'm full of life. I have been full of life for years now. Full of energy, run, jump, dance. Just, yeah, the body is a wholly neutral thing. It says it'll be healthy and full of life and full of, yeah, because my mind's free. It doesn't have any concept of, it has no guilt. And so just, yeah, I could go, I could run. I'm a fast runner. This body will just run if it needs to. If it doesn't need to, I don't have any concept of needing to exercise or not. But it's the life. It's the life. You're living life. You're just so present in every moment. And I'm just going over time a little bit, but I'm not really. I'm right on the hour. But I'd just like to say that when you just concentrate on releasing all the guilt, all the fears, all the worries, and you'll just come back to, just don't associate with the body. But it takes time, and the body will be free because the mind's free, and the body will just be tingling with life and just loving. I just love, like, I'm going to get out today and do some gardening and just be in life. So,
hey, can I just say that this took you a couple of years? I know Regina's coming on, I think, but did you cry? Did a lot of tears come up?
Yes, I cried more in that 2 years than I've cried in my whole life.
Okay, because that's what happens to me. You know, I have a lot of pain, fatigue. I wear acupressure shoes, they help, but there's a lot of guilt in here that's dug down really deep. And even though I know it intellectually, I haven't gotten it.
No. And so there's just layers and layers and layers that will be released. And it just takes time. And that's it. You just do it every day. Just commit. Okay, just join with the Holy Spirit. Okay, Holy Spirit, what's the next block? Okay, I feel guilty as a mum. I feel guilty as a daughter. Sit quietly. Okay, clear this for me. Show me the truth of this. I want the truth because I want to be at peace. And that's your heart's desire. It comes in. It will shift. It will. As you desire it, it will move. So just keep your desire for the peace of God, really strong in your mind. So I'll finish off here. I love you. I bless you. And I adore you. You are beautiful. You are whole. You are complete. You are love. You are the Christ, the beautiful, whole, guiltless, innocent, beautiful, holy Son of God. Gorgeous, lovely, light of the world. Thank you for joining in this beautiful truth and being embraced by this love. And let this love swim around you and sweep you up and sweep you off your feet. Love you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Wow.